Hi, this is a supplementary lecture on managing your Six Sigma project and is part of the Executive Black Belt course from Straight Line. This is going to be a very short discussion on the slides in week 2 and essentially what I want to communicate here is that we're not going to teach you project management in 15 minutes. Just ain't going to happen. Okay. The idea is we're going to give you some guidelines and make sure that you know that this is an important part of your job as a black belt. There are plenty of great books that are out there on project management, and I find that striking a balance between detail and how onerous it is managing that detail is really the key to effective project management. And that's driven a lot by the team. The team is going to essentially tell you how much the team, both that report to you on this and that you report to, the steering committee and so forth, are going to dictate sort of how much communication is necessary, how much business control is necessary, and so forth. In any event, let's give you some guidelines on when you're starting out, what are some things that are really important to do, and some of the things that you need to kind of keep a running total of. So when we finish this, you'll be able to write an effective communication plan. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You'll be able to plan a daily team huddle, and you can substitute in there weekly or bi-weekly or whatever is the most important. I have a strong bias for having a daily team huddle when I run a project, but I will freely admit that twice a week or even once a week sometimes is enough. Using a Lean Six Sigma report out template, and we'll also talk very briefly about 2 tools that are very effective, a work breakdown structure, and most important, in my view, this is really the key one, is a Gantt chart. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about all of those things. You know, I've got 2 areas circled on where it's important to do this. Certainly it's important up front to plan your project. Yes, it's important to consider these project management and to plan these tools and to plan the implementation. But the reality is you are using it all over the domain process, okay? Project management is the job that, it's like the mother's job, right? A mother's job never ends, if you remember that one. Now I guess it's mothers and fathers' job never ends. Project management are all the little things that you do to make sure the project is on track and stays on track. Now keep in mind that project management is both an art and a science. It's more of an art, however, and we'll be talking about some of the standard tools and so forth. However, what it's really about is about managing people without having the authority to manage them. Okay, you're not managing by authority, you're managing by being a leader, and you're doing it by your influence and your ability to estimate results in the face of uncertainty. The fact that we don't exactly know how we're going to fix a problem makes it difficult to estimate how long it's going to take to fix it, and yet we must do that in any event. Okay, so it's an art. Let's start with at least part of the science, and that is a communication plan. So what is a communication plan? It's really an agreed-upon process through which to communicate your status to your sponsor and others. It does not need to be complicated or time-consuming. So it should have, in any communication plan, it should have time frames for regular updates. How often am I going to update my sponsors? Okay, for example, how often are we going to communicate as a team? It should have some sort of, when you do make that communication, it should have some sort of overall status, what are the critical items, and so forth. And it might have a project narrative to it. Let's take a look at a standard or at something where I might put together for a project plan, and this is part of your template as well as part of the templates that are available in your project folder. This one happens to be an overly complicated one. This was for a project that I ran implementing, or I co-ran, implementing a large number of changes in a lot of facilities at a warehouse. So for this, we had essentially the core team, and for this we would present project status documents. We had a one-page project status report where that went to the core team and the extended team, and that was done weekly. We also had a PowerPoint deck which went to the core team and extended team, and that was done up front wherever each time we went to a new facility, we had to do that. We also note in the last column that we have who is responsible for that delivery. In the first one, it was always me. That's Mark. In the second one, it was whoever was at that facility. If Dan, who was the executive on our team, showed up, he was the one who did it. Otherwise, it was usually me, unless Steve or John were the only ones who were signing up. Okay, and so forth. We had facility sign-off, one-page client report, and so forth. We had some project status documents. That's the key thing. And we talked about who got it, what it was, who gets it, when do they get it, and who's the responsible party. Okay? We also had some status meetings, awareness buildings, and change communications. What you might have in your project are just a few lists of the documents, right? What are the things that people get? If they get a one-page project status report, who gets it? How often does it happen? Okay? If there's a PowerPoint deck associated with this, how often? When does it happen? Okay? If there's a 15-minute meeting that you have with your sponsor, how often does that happen? Who's it happen with? And who's responsible for producing the deliverables for that? Okay. Pretty straightforward for a communication plan. It's not hard to do once you get doing it, but it is kind of important to put together. Now I have this listed as the second thing I wanted to talk through is a daily team huddle. Now, like I said, I have a strong bias for having a daily team huddle, and I like it to be on a day. In that meeting, what I can do is I can review all the immediate tasks and deliverables that we have for each of the team members. Generally, I sometimes call this a daily stand-up, or again, you could call it a team huddle. Whatever works fine. Now, I want to make this clear. This should be distinct from any other big meetings that you have. If you have a weekly meeting on status, you should still keep that. But again, I have a strong bias for just the core team. For just the core team, that may be 3 or 4, 5 individuals at most. You're talking about what is it that we have confronting us today? What are we late on? What are we ahead of schedule on? And who's doing what? And if there are any issues, let's talk about what those issues are, but let's not try and problem solve. Keep it very short. Keep it 5, 10, 15 minutes as appropriate. And using some daily artifact is usually helpful. If it's your Gantt chart, which we'll discuss in a moment, that's helpful. If it's an Excel spreadsheet that just has, step 1, discuss open items. Step 2, discuss open actions. Step 3, issues and risks. And have that done. And then keep walking through it. All right. One other thing that I want to mention is that all of you should be putting together a project report. Now, what is that? That's a place where you can kind of keep the story going. I like telling the DMAIC story, as you know, which is really essentially, here's what the problem was, here's where we stood beforehand, here's what we discovered was causing our problems, here's what we did to fix them, here's what we did to ensure that the fixes were there, and here's what the value of all this was. Now, as you're going through a project, of course, you can't know all those things. So what I like to do is keep kind of a running total. Keep kind of a running total. Let me put my pointer on a felt tip pen. And that running total might look something like, 3 slides. 1 is my charter. 2 is my Gantt chart, or I'll just say schedule at the moment. 3 might be, what did I do last week? What have I done lately? And the 4 might be next steps. here's what we're going to do in the next week. Having something like that would be helpful. And then finally, at the end of it, if you're keeping sort of a running total, you want to have an appendix with a number of your artifacts, like, for example, the charter, problem statement, goal statement. If you've got a baseline, right, you'll put in your capability, your stability, etc. Whatever you've done, you might want to put a SIPOC in there. Again, you don't want to talk through the SIPOC 15 times during the course of the project. You only want to talk through it once, but it's helpful to have it in that appendix for when you put together the entire story. Now, there is a project report template that's out there, but it's essentially merely a repository for you to put all of your Six Sigma items. So when you complete your problem statement, you throw that in. When you complete your goal statement, you throw that in. And then you, not sure why it keeps doing that. And then as soon as you finish, then you're done. You move it into the appendix. As I said, that project report is in your templates directory and so forth. It's just a starting point. It's just really not meant to do any more than give you a start. Okay, now let's talk about project scheduling. And I want to talk about two things in here. One is a work breakdown structure, and one is a Gantt chart. So what are these things? I'm just going to talk this through really quickly. A work breakdown structure, because all this stuff is also available on the internet. If you Google it, look it up in Wikipedia, and it's pretty clear. However, work breakdown structure, what is it? It's really a tool that helps you estimate. And what does it help you estimate? It helps you estimate how much time and how much resource is going, is going to be needed to complete a certain task. The way that it starts out is you use the high-level task, in other words, the big task on the left-hand side. Like, for example, if you're putting together a dinner party, you might have as your highest level tasks to serve the dinner and then to run the after-dinner activities. Okay? To serve the dinner, you might say, well, I have to do a number of different things. Let's just start this out. If you were doing this project and you were going to estimate, well, how long would it take to do all this? You might not have any clues. So you might need more detail. You might need to go to the subtask level, like, for example, prepare the setting, write up the menu, get the ingredients, cook the meal. So if we do that, then we might be able to, at this point, estimate what each of these tasks were. If we would, then we're done. If we're not, we can go down another subtask level. So, for example, preparing the setting, I'll have to wash the tablecloth, and I'll have to set the table. I feel confident that I can estimate that. It's going to take me 4 hours to wash and clean and dry the tablecloth and have that ready, and it's going to take me a half hour to set the table, and so forth. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. On the other hand, I don't need to go to that next subtask level of detail to know how long it's going to take me to write the menu. I know it's going to take me about a half hour, so I can write that in. So the art here, and so forth, we can do that for get the ingredients, we can do it for cooking the meal, and we can do it for the after-dinner activities as well. So the key thing here is to be able to is to break up the data or break up each of these into a place where you feel reasonably confident that you can estimate the time it'll take or the time and the resources that it'll take to do a task. All right. Now, as I said, this is science and art. So a lot of times I've seen so many project plans where they will have a work breakdown structure for thinking about how long it's going to take to order lunch. Don't do that. If you're in the define phase and you're planning how long it's going to take to get lunch for each of the folks on days and what their orders might be and putting that into a schedule, you're probably overthinking it. Okay? So again, I have a strong bias for staying pretty high level, and only when you need to go into those deeper levels, you go into those deeper levels. Very easy to get lost, to lose the forest for the trees. I've seen it. Okay. Let's now talk about a Gantt chart. Well, what is a Gantt chart? A Gantt chart is simply taking that work breakdown structure and putting it on the calendar. Okay, so it's a pictorial representation of the time frame for each of these different things. So, for example, in Define, we now know that there's a number of different deliverables that we have. We're going to make the business case. We're going to link to the customer. We're going to macro map, right? This is SciPoc. We're going to decide upon our key outputs and scope. We're going to put together our team. We're going to put together our project plan. And then hopefully we'll have a meeting with the sponsors to say we're done. That's what a toll gate review is. This just puts it on the schedule that says when is it that we're going to do all these different things. Okay? That's it. So for example, it says we're going to, in the first 3 weeks, work really hard to make the business case for this. In the first week of January, we're going to put together our team. In the first week of January, we're going to plan out the whole project. That's what that says. But we're not going to we're not going to have a decision on scope until the 2nd. Now, it could happen earlier, in which case, we'll mark it done. Okay, so let's see here for a second. All right, so one of the things that you can do in your daily huddle, for example, is to, let's suppose you're on February 29th. If this is in an Excel spreadsheet, what you can do, oh goodness, what you can do is you can highlight that column or that date, and you can ask the question about, is this particular task done? If we haven't linked it yet to the customer, what else do we need to do to get that task done? Okay? Now, the beauty of a Gantt chart in here, for those of you who have done project management before, you can know that this is a tough thing to do. It's not easy. It's not easy to do. However, the beautiful thing for Six Sigma projects is that these sorts of items are basically the same for all projects. So for all projects, we're going to put together a charter, right? For all projects, we're going to link to the customer. For all projects, we're going to do a SciPoc, and so forth. For all projects, we're going to measure. That means we're going to collect data. That means we're going to evaluate, hey, do we have good data? That means we're going to take an initial look at it. That means we're going to try and rescope if we can, and we're going to baseline as well. So all projects will have that. I did want to say that you have well, first of all, an updated Gantt chart is shown here. But I also wanted to mention that you do have you actually have 2 templates. Here's a general Gantt chart. General Gantt, I think he was in the Civil War. Here's a general Gantt chart where you can put in any task or whatever. For those of you who use Microsoft Project, you're laughing at this one. Okay. But here's one actually that I called Simple Gantt, which I think is helpful because it really does the job. Here are all the different things that you'll need in order to complete the project. Okay. So that's it. We've come to the end of this, and we've talked about how managing a project is a vital thing for the black belt to execute on. It really is making sure that you cross the I's and dot the T's. Yes, cross the T's and dot the I's on your project. And it also, as we said, it's the art of influencing people and of managing without authority. Okay, so we talked about a few things that you can do. Those few things are put together a communication plan, both for your sponsors and for your team. Talk about, consider having a daily huddle in which each day you talk with your core team. No more. You don't want 20 people in that meeting. You want the 3 or 4 people, maybe 5, who are really executing on the project day in, day out. What did we do yesterday? Are we done on tasks? Are there any issues? No? Okay, hit the go button. What do we have going for today? We also talked about having a project report out ready, and if we do it well, we'll have it ready and so that it can be easily reported out to sponsors at any time. Then finally, we talked about 2 tools that are helpful in scheduling. One is a work breakdown structure, which helps you estimate how much time a task is going to take by breaking it down from left to right, from high level to detailed level, only go to the details that you need to in order to estimate the time well as the resource. And then finally, we talked about a Gantt chart, which is a picture. It's a picture of which tasks need to be done and how long and when it's going to take. So it's a calendar view. Now, I happen to love Gantt charts, so I love seeing them on project report outs too. Okay, well, now it's your turn. In your view, what are the key takeaways of this section? What are the key questions that can be answered as a result of this section? And how can you support business improvement with what we just covered? It'll be helpful for you to write down those answers, your own answers, so that when you go back, it's more real to you. Thank you, and see you down the road.